won't let me go.
The hardest battles are fought in the mind.
These words encompass the primary theme of Hellblade. The hidden mental world is a place filled with memories, emotions, traumas, and passions. Like the tip of an iceberg, we are only consciously aware of a small fraction of what lies below the surface. Most are either unwilling or unprepared to truly dive into that dark place. However, that is exactly what Senua must do in the Trial of Blindness. Up until now, 3 shards of the sword Gramr have been recovered. With each piece, not only is this weapon being forged, but Senua's resolve and ability to navigate her psyche is being tempered. This final crucible will forge the sword fully. Before then, she is tossed deep into the darkness of her own mind. Before the dive into this dark trial, Druth relates the story of Odin sacrificing his eye. Mimir demanded a great sacrifice in exchange for gifting Odin the privilege of drinking from Mimispjornr. This was the well where all wisdom flowed. In exchange for losing sight in one eye, he gained insight in many other things. With this theme of going blind and gaining new insight, Senua finds herself in a place where nothing can be seen. Just as her anxiety begins to take over, Dillion's voice helps to calm her down. Senua faces 2 primary struggles during this trial. 1, to calm her mind down well enough to navigate, and 2, to gain the courage needed to move past the horrors hidden in the shadows. Let's look at the first one. Before the start of the story, it is explained that at times when her psychosis became especially overbearing, she would retreat within herself, blind to the world around her. Trapped in here, she would wander without conscious thought and awaken with no memory of what had happened. Dillion had been able to bring her out of these episodes.
Help me.
Breathe slow.
It's the darkness.
Stay still. Empty your thoughts. Tell me what you feel.
A breeze.
Good. Then there is a way out.
I can't tell where it comes from.
Yes, you can.
The mind is naturally a chaotic place. Thoughts, whims, fantasies, lots of things wander around all hours of the day. For someone like Senua, she hears both positive and negative things as literal voices. The Furies are silenced here, and she is guided to focus on senses that still remain to her.
I think I'm somewhere else now. The breeze has gone.
Use all of your senses. Let the world speak to you. What do you hear?
I hear water.
Go to it.
This can be considered a grounding technique. Grounding is a method used to help with PTSD and anxiety attacks. This technique is intended to help reduce the impact of these episodes. They are largely broken into 3 categories. Cognitive grounding, which involves forcing your mind to focus on other things. This can be naming every film you know that starts with the letter M. It makes you put all of your focus on another task. The method seen in this trial may be tactile grounding, as it involves focusing on one or more of your 5 senses. This can be listening to the wind, petting your dog, or drinking a flavorful hot tea. Visual grounding is another category. One example is picking a color and making a list of everything in your room of that color. In this trial, Senua is both overcome by one of her episodes and blind to the world. The only way to find herself back out is to quiet her mind and focus on the sound of the wind, of the river flowing through the shadows. Dillion's voice is another guide that can lead her from this episode. This trial can be seen as helping her to better deal with these in the future, when they do inevitably come. While it would be preferable to prevent these entirely, that is not practical. However, the better Senua gets at dealing with this situation, the easier it will be for her to return from them when they do inevitably pop up. Along with this, they will have less control over her life. However, there are dangers on the road back. Nightmares live inside the darkness of our own minds. Shapeless monstrosities creep just out of sight. One reason many of us do not spend too much time exploring the depths of our own mind is things exist down there. traumas we would rather keep forgotten are pushed to the back of our heads and exist just like these half-seen monsters. We convince ourselves that if we cannot see these traumas in our mind's eye, then they will not distress us. It is interesting that within Hellblade, these are the only enemies that cannot be killed. One of the brain's many functions is to record our experiences. We cannot banish a bad memory from our head. We cannot slay it and cast it out like the Northman that Senua cuts through. Senua must learn that, yes, these creatures exist and always will. Learning how to live with them is the trick. After falling into the house, she is overcome with paralyzing fear. Barely able to get to her feet, Dillion acts as her guide again.
Dillion, there's something in you.
Do you see him?
No.
Then it cannot see you. Quietly move past it, one step at a time.
The gameplay mechanics reflect how these traumas are to be overcome. Be aware of their existence, listen to where they are, and walk past them one step at a time. One way of thinking about this is immersion therapy. This is a method to help an individual cope with fear and anxiety. First, the therapist will work with the patient and determine the source of their fears. Then, they slowly expose them little by little to it. One step at a time, they are guided to move closer. With each step and enough time, the patient will learn that they can tolerate a little more. If successful, the end result is this fear has less impact on their lives. It is important to note that these fears are never banished from the mind, just like these monsters are not banished. However, it teaches Senua to be brave in the face of her traumas, so she can walk past them and not let them control her. While this next section may be me looking a bit too much into the imagery of this trial, I felt it was important to bring up. The first creature was alone and found inside a house. This trauma may be related to her father, as this place resembles her childhood home. Heading out into the forest, we see many more. Around the torches and trees are Viking shields. This portion may be related to the Northmen. Next, we see some more trapped in the level below her while she walks over a small beam. This does not relate to a specific event, but may be a poetic visual. These traumas are just under the surface, and when walking past them, we must maintain our balance on the tight path. If we slip, we fall down and are consumed by the beasts. Once Senua descends down into the well, we see corpses strung up all throughout. Back in the swamp trial, the imagery of Senua half covered in water related to the plague that swept through her village, killing most of them. Northmen took care of the rest. This basement feels like a graveyard of her people, an internal version of her coming home and finding everyone slaughtered. Hiding amongst these corpses is more trauma. Once past this, Dillion's light is in the distance and helps Senua walk out of this episode. While these images will always be in her mind, she did not freeze or run away from them. She was kept aware of them, avoided them, and moved forward. With this final trial, the sword Gramr is reforged. Senua is now prepared to pull the sword from the tree and brave the horrors of hell. It is, however, important to keep in mind that these trials were not intended to make her overcome her past. They were intended to give her both a better understanding of herself and tools to help her cope with her own head. During her previous confrontation with Hela on the bridge, her sword, the symbol of one's ability to navigate the mind safely, is shattered. Her lessons help her forge a new sword and reclaim her ability to navigate the mind. With a new weapon and new mental toughness in hand, Senua will have to prove she has gained mastery of this sword, and by extension, these lessons. The next phase of this test is when she is cast down into the next level of hell. If Senua cannot prove her true mastery of this sword and the 4 trials, she will be lost in the sea of corpses. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like, as it really does help out the channel. If you would like updates on new uploads, feel free to subscribe or follow me on Twitter. Have a good day, and peace be with you all.